Do you ever feel like you're in a war with yourself every single morning? A silent war, fought in the space between your alarm clock and the real world. On one side, there's the person you aspire to be, a version of yourself full of energy, ready to conquer the day, hit the gym, start that project, or simply be fully present for your family. And then, there's the other side. A whispering, seductive voice, clinging to the warmth of the covers, begging for just 5 more minutes. That voice says you're tired, that you deserve a break, that tomorrow, definitely tomorrow, will be the day you really start. If you know that war, if you've ever felt that internal tug-of-war, you are not alone. For years, we've been taught to see discipline as a form of punishment. It's about restriction, harshness, and using iron-willed force to make ourselves do things we don't want to do. We picture it as a drill sergeant, screaming orders at the tired soldier that is us. And let's be honest, who wants to live under that kind of tyranny? It's exactly why so many of our efforts to become more disciplined fail. We quit because it feels like self-abuse, a battle against our own nature. But what if, just for a moment, we saw it in a completely different light? What if discipline isn't punishment? What if it isn't self-hatred disguised as self-improvement? What if discipline, at its core, is the highest and most sincere form of self-love? Think about it. True love isn't about indulging every whim. True love is protective. It sets boundaries. It says no to what is harmful in the long run to say yes to what nurtures and builds. Discipline is the act of showing that love to your future self. Every time you choose to go to bed early instead of scrolling on your phone, that is an act of love for the person you will be tomorrow, who will wake up with clarity. Every time you choose a healthy meal over junk food, that is an act of love for your body years from now. Every time you push through procrastination to start your work, that is an act of love for the potential you know you possess. This video is not another list of rules to feel guilty about. This is an invitation. An invitation to call a truce in the war and to start a partnership with yourself. A journey to discover that real strength doesn't come from force, but from understanding and leadership. And that journey begins by clearly identifying the enemy, and the ally, that lives right inside of us. Part 1, The Greatest Enemy and the Greatest Ally. The real war is never fought in the boardroom, on the stock market, or in a loud debate. Those are just secondary theaters. The war that defines everything, the one that shapes your legacy, your health, and your peace, is fought in silence. It is won or lost in the 6 inches of space between your ears. The most formidable enemy you will ever face is not a competitor, a difficult boss, or a bad economy. Your greatest enemy is that voice. That quiet, reasonable, and utterly convincing voice that you mistake for your own. It doesn't scream. It doesn't threaten. It is a master negotiator. It doesn't say, "Give up," a command so stark it would be easy to resist. Instead, it says, "Just for today." It says, "You've worked so hard, you deserve a break." When you look at your running shoes, it doesn't say, "Never run again," it says, "It looks like it might rain, better to wait for tomorrow to be safe." When you sit down to tackle a difficult task, it doesn't say, "You're an idiot," it says, "You need more information, let's just browse the web for a bit of research first." It cloaks laziness in the language of caution. It turns procrastination into preparation. It disguises indulgence with the vocabulary of self-care. This is the evil genius of the internal enemy. It uses our own reasonable desires and fears against us. After 35, this voice gets even more sophisticated. It no longer uses the flimsy excuses of youth. It uses the real burdens of adulthood. It talks about the mortgage, the kids' bills, the accumulated fatigue of years of dedication. It says you've done enough, that now is the time to ease up, to accept a comfortable stability instead of pushing for uncertain challenges. It whispers that big dreams are for your 20s, and that now, being realistic is the wise thing to do. And the scariest part is, we believe it. We nod along, because it all sounds so reasonable, so right. And every time we listen, we cede a little more power. Every small compromise is another stone paved on the road to mediocrity. But the story doesn't end there. Because if an enemy exists within, so does an ally. And that ally is also you. It's the part of you that set the big goals in the first place. It's the quieter, deeper voice that knows what you're capable of. It's the version of you that isn't swayed by a temporary mood or the fatigue of a single bad day. It's the one holding the compass of your core values, the one who remembers the promise you made to yourself in a moment of clarity. This is your inner leader. Leading yourself is not an abstract concept for CEOs and generals. It is the most fundamental act of a well-lived life. It is the bedrock of maturity. Leading yourself means becoming someone you can trust. It means that when you decide you're going to wake up at 6 a.m., you wake up at 6 a.m., not because someone is watching, but because you honor your own word. It means that when you commit to finishing a report by Friday, you finish it, even if it means working an extra hour on Thursday night while others are relaxing. The power of this inner leader doesn't come from authoritarian control. It comes from consistency. It is built in 1,000 small, unseen choices. It's choosing the salad over the fries. It's turning off Netflix to read a book. It's taking a deep breath instead of firing off a critical comment. Each of these actions, no matter how small, is a vote. You are casting a vote for the type of person you want to be. You are sending a clear message to your own brain, I am in charge here. My principles, not my impulses, dictate my actions. Think of the mirror test. Every morning and every night, you face yourself. The person in that mirror doesn't care about your job title, your bank account, or the praise you get from others. It knows only one thing: did you keep your word to yourself? Did you live the day with integrity? Did you face discomfort or did you choose the easy way out? The respect you crave from the world will never fill the void if you cannot respect the person in the mirror. And that self-respect, the most valuable asset you will ever own, cannot be bought or given. It can only be earned. It is earned in the friction of discipline, in the silence of promises kept. So how does this ally win? Not by destroying the enemy. Trying to completely silence the voice of comfort and procrastination is a futile war. It's like trying to stop the ocean's waves. That voice is part of our wiring, it's the brain's primal energy conservation mechanism. Instead, the wise leader doesn't fight it. They hear it. They acknowledge it. They say, I hear you. I understand you feel tired. Thank you for sharing. And then, with calm authority, the leader says, but we have a plan. We have our values. And now, we are going to act on that plan. This is the crucial shift, from an internal showdown to a directed dialogue. You are no longer a soldier torn between two warring generals. You become the ship's captain, who listens to the warnings of a sailor about a coming storm, but who ultimately keeps their hand on the wheel and sets the course based on the map and the chosen destination. When you begin to practice this self-leadership, something magical happens. The enemy's voice doesn't disappear, but it loses its power. It becomes background noise instead of the commanding officer. Its power is neutralized by your clarity of purpose. You no longer need to argue with it, because the decision was already made, not in the moment of weakness, but in a moment of strength and commitment. You have set a non-negotiable standard for yourself. And living up to that standard, day in and day out, is how your inner ally builds an empire. An empire of trust, of integrity, and of an unshakable peace, because it is built on the most solid foundation of all, self-respect. Part 2, Your Fortress, the Power of If-Then. The inner leader we just spoke of, no matter how courageous, cannot win a sustained war on bravery alone. A wise general doesn't rely solely on the morale of his troops, he relies on strategy, on terrain, and on well-built fortifications. In the war for a life of purpose, your routine is that fortification. But let's be honest, the word routine often carries a negative weight. We think of boredom, of mindless repetition, a life devoid of spontaneity. We picture it as a prison of monotony. This is one of the greatest misunderstandings about a disciplined life. A well-designed routine is not a prison. It is a fortress. Consider the difference. A prison is something imposed upon you from the outside that restricts your freedom. But a fortress is something you build yourself, not to keep you in, but to protect what is most valuable inside. It's built to defend against the chaos of the outside world, the endless demands, the constant distractions, and most importantly, against the unpredictability of your own moods. It is inside those walls that true freedom can flourish. The freedom to think deeply, to create, to do the important work, because you are no longer spending your precious energy fighting off the random storms of life. So how do we build this fortress? Many of us, especially those with responsibilities, believe the answer lies in something called willpower. We believe we just need to try harder. We start the day with a full tank of willpower, determined to eat right, exercise, be patient with our kids, and focus at work. But then what happens? By 3 p.m., after 100 small decisions, stressful meetings, and unforeseen problems, that tank is empty. And that is precisely when we reach for the cookie jar, snap at a loved one, or waste an hour scrolling through social media. Relying on willpower alone is like trying to build a fortress out of sand. It collapses at the first wave of stress. There has to be a better way. And thankfully, science has shown us one. It's a tool of staggering power and simplicity, researched and proven by the psychologist Peter Gollwitzer. It's called an implementation intention. It sounds complex, but at its heart, it's beautifully simple. It is the act of making a specific plan for your future behavior using an if-then formula. Most of us set goals in a vague way. We say, I want to read more, or I should meditate. These are nice wishes, but they are not a plan. They don't tell your brain when and where to perform the action. An if-then plan does exactly that. Instead of, I will exercise more, you create a clear command for your brain: if the clock strikes 5 p.m. and I finish my last work call, then I will immediately change into my workout clothes and go for a 25-minute brisk walk. Instead of, I want to write, you decide, if I finish making my morning coffee and sit down at my desk, then the first thing I will do is freewrite for 15 minutes, before I open my email. Do you feel the difference? It's no longer a choice to be debated. It's a preloaded command. You are linking the behavior you want to do, walking, writing, to a pre-existing cue or context in your day, finishing work, making coffee. You are giving your goal a time and a place to live. And what have studies shown? People who use this simple technique are 2 to 3 times more likely to follow through on their goals than people who only have vague intentions. Why is it so effective? The answer lies deep within the architecture of our brains. Imagine your brain as a large corporation. Your prefrontal cortex is the CEO. This is where high-level activity happens, strategic decision-making, complex problem-solving, and exerting willpower. This CEO is brilliant and powerful, but also gets tired and easily overworked. Every decision, no matter how small, depletes the CEO's energy. Now, imagine another part of the brain corporation, the basal ganglia. This is the automation department. It doesn't think or decide. It simply runs pre-installed programs efficiently and with very little energy. This is where your habits live, from driving a car to brushing your teeth. When you have a vague goal like, I want to be healthier, you force your CEO to make a new decision every single day. Should I work out today? What should I do? When should I do it? This exhausts the CEO. But when you create an if-then plan and repeat it, you are doing something entirely different. You are writing a new piece of software and sending it down to the automation department. The first few times, the CEO might have to supervise to make sure the program runs correctly. But after a few repetitions, something neurologically magical happens. The control of that action gets handed off from the CEO, the prefrontal cortex, to the automation department, the basal ganglia. The if cue, making coffee, automatically triggers the then behavior, writing, without the CEO even needing to be involved or to give approval. You have freed up your mental energy. You have automated discipline. Now, doing the right thing is no longer a battle of wills, it has become the path of least resistance. It's easier to do it than not to do it. This is how you build your fortress, stone by stone. Every if-then habit you install is another stone laid in place. If it is Sunday, then I will spend 30 minutes planning my week. Another stone. If I feel stressed, then I will step outside and take 5 deep breaths of fresh air. Another stone. Slowly, you build a solid structure around your life. This structure doesn't confine you. On the contrary, it liberates you. It frees your inner CEO from the tyranny of constant, trivial decision-making, so that he or she can focus on what really matters, your long-term vision, your deep relationships, and solving the complex problems that move your life forward. Being the architect of your life doesn't mean controlling every variable. That's impossible. It means designing an internal system, a fortress of intentional habits, so that when the inevitable storms of life hit, you have a safe place to stand, a structure that helps you hold your course. That isn't rigidity, that's wisdom. That isn't a lack of freedom, it's the foundation for real freedom. Part 3, A Vaccine for the Soul, Choosing Voluntary Hardship. We live in a world engineered to eliminate discomfort. With a click, we can have food delivered to our door, watch any movie ever made, and adjust our climate to the perfect temperature. Comfort is no longer a luxury, it's the default expectation. In theory, this should have produced the happiest, most secure humans in history. But look around. Look at yourself. If comfort is the ultimate goal, why do so many of us feel more fragile, more anxious, and less fulfilled than ever before? The answer lies in a simple paradox: the very thing designed to protect us is what's making us weak. Just as a muscle that is never used will atrophy, so too does the human spirit. When we constantly shield ourselves in a cocoon of comfort, we give our resilience muscle no resistance to train against. Our tolerance for discomfort shrinks, not because we are inherently weak, but because we are out of practice. We become brittle. And then, when real, involuntary hardship arrives, a health crisis, a job loss, a broken relationship, we shatter. We panic. The feeling of discomfort becomes overwhelming because it is now an alien land for which we have no map. But the ancient Stoic thinkers, and now modern psychology, knew of a remedy. A strategy to rebuild that eroded inner strength. It's called voluntary hardship. And perhaps the best way to think about it in today's world is as a vaccine for the soul. How does a vaccine work? It introduces a small, weakened dose of a pathogen into your system. It's not enough to make you truly sick, but it's enough to activate your immune system. It teaches your body to recognize and fight the invader. By facing a controlled threat, your body builds up the defenses so that when the real disease comes along, it's ready. Voluntary hardship operates on the exact same principle. By intentionally exposing yourself to controlled doses of discomfort, you are teaching your mind and your nervous system how to deal with adversity. You are inoculating your spirit with intentional stress, so that when real, uninvited stress crashes into your life, your response is no longer panic. It's familiarity. This isn't a call to masochism or self-torture. This is a call to strategic training. Think of it as going to the gym for your mind. When you go to the gym and lift a heavy weight, you are intentionally inducing stress on your muscle fibers. They tear on a microscopic level. Why would you do that? Because you know that in the process of repairing themselves, they will grow back stronger than before. Voluntary hardship is lifting weights for the soul. What can this look like in the life of a busy adult? It doesn't have to be dramatic. It can start with something as simple as a 30-second cold shower in the morning. The initial shock of the cold water is a mini panic. Your heart races, your breathing gets shallow. But then you learn to breathe into it. You learn to stay calm. You are teaching your nervous system, I can feel this shock and not be controlled by it. After a few weeks of this, you'll notice that the small stressors of the day, an annoying email, a traffic jam, don't seem to affect you as much. You've raised your threshold for what you can handle. It could be intermittent fasting, skipping breakfast and eating only within a specific window of time. The initial pangs of hunger are a form of discomfort. They are a constant reminder of your dependency. But as you push through it, you teach your body and mind that you are not a slave to every immediate craving. You realize you can function effectively even when you aren't instantly gratified. In our digital world, one of the most potent forms of voluntary hardship might be an information fast. Try one day with no social media, no news. The initial discomfort comes from boredom, from the urge to know what's going on. But as you endure it, you find a quietness, a capacity for deep focus that you haven't experienced in years. You are training the muscles of attention and presence. It could be taking the stairs instead of the elevator. It could be having that difficult conversation you've been avoiding. It could be starting a new skill that makes you feel like a complete, incompetent beginner. The point isn't in the act itself, but in the message you are sending to yourself. With every intentional act of hardship, you are telling yourself, I am not someone who runs from discomfort. I am someone who walks toward it. I am stronger than my impulse for comfort. And the rewards for this training go far beyond mere toughness. First comes earned confidence. This isn't the hollow confidence of positive affirmations. This is the deep, grounded confidence that comes from having physical proof that you can endure. You've seen yourself do it. This self-belief becomes part of you, a source of strength no one can take away. Second comes a profound sense of gratitude. When you step out of that cold shower, the warmth of your towel feels like an incredible luxury. After a fast, a simple meal tastes like a feast. Voluntary hardship recalibrates your senses. It makes you stop taking your daily comforts for granted and start seeing them as the gifts they are. Comfort is no longer your default state, it becomes something you appreciate. This is how the inner leader trains. They don't just sit in the command room issuing orders. They lead from the front. They willingly step into the controlled fire so that when the real fire erupts, they know how not to get burned. Every practice of voluntary hardship is a vote of confidence in that leader, making the voice of commitment and value louder than the voice of weakness and fear. The ultimate goal is not to live a life of misery. It is to build an inner strength so profound that you no longer fear misery. You become resilient, not just bouncing back from shocks, but actually getting stronger from them. And this inner power, forged in chosen fire, leads to the most profound discovery of all, the realization of what truly matters, and what the real reward is for all this effort. Part 4, The Real Reward. Think about the moments that have truly defined you. They rarely happen under a spotlight. They aren't documented in performance reviews or social media posts. They happen in the near-total silence of an early morning, when the alarm goes off and the rest of the world is still asleep. They happen at the end of a long, weary day, when you face the choice between opening a book or letting a screen pull you into its endless scroll. They happen in the pause, when you bite back a harsh word and choose silence or a kind response instead. In those moments, a reasonable question arises: what's the point? If you win that small war with your warm bed and no one is there to give you a medal, does it count? If you choose the healthy meal when no one is watching, does the effort register? If a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it, does it make a sound? If you practice discipline and no one claps, does it really matter? The world we live in has programmed us with a definitive answer: no. It doesn't matter unless it is seen, measured, and acknowledged. From a young age, we are trained in an economy of external validation. Gold stars on our papers, report cards, parental praise, which then morph into raises, job titles, likes, and followers as we get older. We have learned to anchor our sense of self-worth to the judgment of others. We have outsourced our self-esteem to the ever-shifting and fickle jury of public opinion. This has made us fragile, our emotions rising and falling like an unmoored ship in a storm of approval and criticism. This is a game you can never win. Because even when you get the applause, it's fleeting. Today's praise is forgotten tomorrow. The promotion soon becomes the new baseline salary with new pressures. The hit of dopamine from a like lasts for a few seconds. Chasing external validation is like drinking salt water to quench your thirst. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. It is a trap, a grand deception that promises fulfillment but delivers only a bottomless void. It keeps you constantly performing, constantly proving, dancing to someone else's tune in the hope they will toss you a few coins of recognition. And this is where the practitioner of discipline takes a different path. A quieter, less traveled road. Because he or she understands a fundamental truth, the real reward for discipline is never something you get from the outside world. It is something you build deep within. It is not a trophy you place on a shelf. It is the very foundation of the house your soul lives in. The first and most precious reward is integrity. The word comes from the Latin root integer, which means whole or complete. And that is exactly how you feel. A sense of wholeness. A deep peace that comes from knowing that your actions and your values are no longer in conflict. The person you are in public and the person you are in private are one and the same. There is no more internal tearing apart, no more nagging guilt of being a hypocrite. There is just a harmony, an alignment, a quiet strength that comes from being authentically you, all the way through. From that integrity, another reward blossoms, true self-respect. Not the loud arrogance that needs to broadcast its accomplishments, but a quiet, unshakable respect for the person in the mirror. It's the knowledge that you are a person of your word, especially when it comes to the most important promises, the ones you make to yourself. You know you can rely on yourself. You know that when you set a course, you will walk it, not because it's easy, but because you decided to. This self-respect becomes your backbone. It allows you to walk through the world with your head held high, not because you are better than anyone else, but because you have not betrayed yourself. And when you have integrity and self-respect, a third reward comes naturally, a fortress of inner peace. When your worth is no longer tied to praise, you are no longer wounded by criticism. When your happiness doesn't come from external rewards, it cannot be taken away by external circumstances. You become the eye of your own hurricane. The world can be chaotic, people can be fickle, fortunes can change, but within you, there is a still point. You own your emotional state. You are no longer a leaf blown about by the wind, you are the tree with deep, unshakable roots. This is why the unseen acts carry a kind of sacredness. Every time you choose the hard right over the easy wrong, you are performing an act of faith in your future self. Every time you begin, especially when you don't want to, you are casting a vote for courage over comfort. The world may not see it, but you see it. Your nervous system registers it. Your soul absorbs it. Each act is a deposit into the bank account of your character. And that account compounds over time, with a kind of interest that no financial market can match. For a person who has lived a few decades, the idea of legacy begins to loom. We wonder what we will leave behind. The script of external validation says your legacy is your assets, your titles, your tangible accomplishments. But all of those things can vanish. The true legacy, the only indestructible one, is the character you have forged. It is the strength, peace, and integrity you embody. It is what your children will remember, not through your lectures, but through your example. They will not remember what you said about discipline, they will remember that you were a solid, dependable person, someone they could count on, because you first proved you could count on yourself. This path is not glamorous. It will not get you a lot of likes. It requires patience. It is often a lonely journey. But it leads to a place that external validation can never touch. It leads to a reward that does not fade with time. It is the deep satisfaction of putting your head on the pillow at the end of the day and knowing, simply, that you lived right. You did not compromise where it counted. You did not take the shortcut. You held the line. You did the work. And that is a peace that no amount of applause in the world can ever buy. We began this journey by talking about a war, a silent one that each of us fights. We've explored how the true enemy isn't a monster, but a sophisticated negotiator living right inside us. We've learned that to win, we don't need endless willpower, but a wisely built fortress of if-then habits. We've seen how willingly choosing a little hardship can act as a vaccine, immunizing us against the chaos of life. And perhaps most importantly, we've realized that the reward for all this effort isn't the world's applause, but something far deeper: integrity, self-respect, and a peace that cannot be bought. And so, we come full circle, but with a new perspective. Discipline is not the iron cage of punishment. It is the protective embrace of self-love. It is not something you have or don't have, it is something you do. Every conscious choice, no matter how small, is an act of love. You are saying to your future self, I care about you. I will protect you from regret. I will invest in your strength and peace, starting today. But philosophy is useless without action. The point of this video isn't just for you to think, it's for you to begin. And real, lasting change never starts with a giant leap. It starts with one small, intentional step. So, I'm not going to ask you to overhaul your entire life overnight. I'm not going to ask you to become a perfect model of discipline tomorrow. I'm going to ask you to do just one thing. Choose one, and only one, if-then, plan for tomorrow. Make it so small it's almost impossible to fail. Maybe it's, if I finish brushing my teeth at night, then I will put my phone in another room. Maybe it's, if I get in the car to drive to work, then I will take 1 minute of deep breaths before I turn on the radio. Or maybe it's, if I feel the urge to complain, then I will think of one thing I am grateful for. Pick your one thing. Your only thing. This video is about to end, but your journey doesn't have to. Right now, take a moment and write your if-then plan in the comments below. Don't do it for me. Do it for you. Writing it down is an act of commitment. It's the first promise you make to your inner leader. It turns a vague intention into a concrete plan. After you write yours, read the commitments of others. You will see that you are not alone on this path. We are all here, together, trying to build a better version of ourselves, one small step at a time. An extraordinary life doesn't begin with a grand act. It begins with a small decision, repeated with love. Make that decision now. Your future self is waiting to thank you for it.